Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're continuing with the next part of this epic time chamber series. My name is Ash. Please, for me, drop a like, join the Patreon, and subscribe to the page. Also, leave your comments down below. With that, let's begin.
Cross my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
The rift-torn sky shimmered violently, streaked with unnatural colors as the Grand Priest hovered effortlessly, exuding an aura that felt like the weight of entire galaxies. His serene expression contrasted with the catastrophic energy waves rippling outward, shaking the very fabric of space-time. Stars in the distance flickered and dimmed, as if bowing to the overwhelming presence dominating the battlefield. He was the #1 among the top 5 beings in existence, a fact that now felt like an unassailable truth. Gohan hovered beside his father, his body trembling under the crushing pressure. His beast 101 aura blazed brightly, the feral energy crackling like a wild storm, but even its intensity couldn't dispel the suffocating force pressing down on him. Beads of sweat rolled down his face as he steadied his breathing, trying to keep his focus sharp. "Look at all that power, and he's not even winded," Gohan muttered, his voice barely rising above the oppressive hum of energy. His eyes darted toward the deity, narrowing with determination, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve. Goku, standing just feet away, looked no better. His silver-blue Ultra Instinct aura shimmered faintly, flickering like a dying flame. He was visibly strained, his breath labored, his muscles taut with exertion, and his guy torn in several places. A thin line of blood trickled from a gash above his brow, trailing down his cheek as he kept his unyielding gaze locked on the Grand Priest. "He's too powerful," Goku admitted, his voice grim. "But we can't let him get the upper hand, not for a second." His aura flared slightly, as though he were trying to will himself into greater strength. The Grand Priest tilted his head, his eyes sharp and unfeeling as they swept over the two Saiyans. He radiated calm authority, but there was a coldness in his tone that sent a shiver through the void. "Your determination is commendable," he said smoothly, his words laced with icy finality. "But this defiance is nothing more than a futile gesture. My power is limitless. Even now, as I humor you, a portion of my energy is maintaining the balance of the universe, something those useless gods of destruction could no longer manage after their unfortunate demise." He raised a hand, his fingers moving with an elegant flick that seemed almost dismissive. Instantly, massive translucent orbs of energy materialized around him, shimmering with an eerie, liquid-like glow. They pulsed ominously, each one radiating a suffocating pressure that made the space around them ripple like disturbed water. What are those?" Gohan gasped, his voice cracking as the oppressive energy pressed against his chest like a vice. The Grand Priest's expression remained impassive. "Fragments of collapsing dimensions," he replied, as though describing something mundane. His voice remained steady, even conversational, which only made the gravity of his words more chilling. "Let us see if your mortal resolve can withstand the weight of annihilation." With a casual gesture, the orbs shot forward, streaking through the void at blinding speeds. The space around them warped violently, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Gohan reacted immediately, his instincts honed by years of battle. His aura surged as he thrust his hands forward, weaving an intricate web of ki into a glowing barrier that spread out like a shimmering dome, shielding both himself and his father. The first orb collided with the barrier, unleashing an explosion that ripped through space itself. The shockwave tore through the battlefield, flattening distant stars and creating swirling black holes in the void. Gohan gritted his teeth, the strain of holding the barrier evident as cracks began to spiderweb across its surface. "I can't hold them all," Gohan shouted, his voice strained as the sheer force of the impact pushed him backward. His arms trembled violently under the pressure, his kai faltering for a moment before he redoubled his efforts. "Dad, move!" Goku didn't hesitate, his instincts sharper than ever. With a burst of speed, he vanished, reappearing high above the shimmering orbs of dimensional energy, his hands extended, glowing with intense silver blue light, and he unleashed a relentless barrage of energy blasts. Each blast met the incoming projectiles head-on, their collisions igniting a chain reaction of explosions that ripped through the battlefield. The sheer magnitude of the detonations tore the fabric of reality apart, leaving expanding voids in their wake. The chaos didn't slow the Grand Priest. Before Goku could react, the deity was already behind him, moving with terrifying precision. His unreadable expression carried an edge of finality, as he raised a glowing hand. "Be gone, you worthless mortal," the Grand Priest said coldly. A devastating pulse of energy erupted from his palm, slamming into Goku's back with an impact that sent shockwaves rippling outward. The force launched Goku downward like a comet, his body engulfed in the Grand Priest's overwhelming ki. As Goku plummeted, he was pulled into the gravity well of a nearby planet, Venus, the hottest in the multiverse. Its toxic atmosphere burned with an intensity fueled by gases from countless universes. When Goku's body collided with the surface, the impact was catastrophic. The planet quaked violently, its molten terrain shifting as its crust shattered into fragments. Land masses separated and drifted apart, splitting into continents, reminiscent of Earth billions of years ago. "Dad!" Gohan screamed, his voice raw with panic. His aura flared wildly, the crimson energy of his beast 101 form burning brighter than ever. He turned his attention back to the Grand Priest, his expression hardening as his resolve deepened. With a fierce battle cry, Gohan propelled himself forward, his fists blazing with concentrated ki. His strikes were fast and calculated, aimed with deadly precision at the Grand Priest's vital energy points. Gohan's training had taught him that disrupting the flow of ki in a foe's body could temporarily weaken their power. But the Grand Priest wasn't just any foe. He was the pinnacle of cosmic power. The Grand Priest met Gohan's onslaught with ease. His movements were fluid, his hands deflecting every punch and strike as though he were swatting away a child's attacks. Yet for the first time, his expression flickered, showing a faint trace of irritation. "You've learned to manipulate ki in ways that exceed most mortals' understanding," the Grand Priest said, his voice calm but sharp. He swatted away another of Gohan's punches with a sweep of his arm, the motion effortless. "But mastering ki alone will never bring you victory against me." Gohan's fists glowed even brighter, the ki around them pulsating in a strange rhythm, as if resonating with the universe itself. His eyes narrowed, determination burning in their depths. "All I need is one hit," he thought, gritting his teeth. "Just one touch, and I can disrupt the flow of ki in his body." Summoning every ounce of strength he had, Gohan charged in once more. His speed increased exponentially, surpassing the speed of sound, then light, then even tachyon-level movement. To the untrained eye, it was as if Gohan had vanished entirely, his form phasing in and out of existence as he closed the distance between himself and the Grand Priest. But this incredible speed came at a price. To achieve his blinding speed, Gohan relied on the ki coursing through the cosmos, the life energy of the universe itself. As he siphoned this vital force, the cost of his actions rippled across existence. Planets dried up, their lush landscapes crumbling into dust. Others exploded in fiery infernos, snuffing out countless lives in an instant. Every living thing that drew breath, every ecosystem teeming with vitality, was drained as Gohan absorbed their essence to fuel his strength. He was aware of the consequences, painfully so, but he had deemed it a necessary evil. This was not the same Gohan who once hesitated to harm his enemies, who fought with mercy in his heart. The trials of war had hardened him, stripped away his innocence. Sacrifices had to be made, and he refused to let those who had already fallen die in vain. Using his incredible speed, Gohan closed the distance between himself and the Grand Priest in an instant. His strikes came in rapid succession, faster than the eye could track. In the blink of an eye, he had landed 52 precise blows, each one aimed with pinpoint accuracy to block the flow of the Grand Priest's ki. "There," Gohan said, his voice steady despite his labored breathing. His glowing fists lowered as he stood before the deity, his aura flickering ominously. "How does it feel to have your key point sealed? Your great power is locked away for the next hour, more than enough time for us to finish this." But before Gohan could act further, a sudden shift in the cosmos sent a chill through him. His senses, finely tuned to the flow of ki, detected a horrifying reality unfolding. The energy of the multiverse itself was unraveling. He could feel the life force of entire universes being erased, their essence breaking down into raw matter. What's going on?" Gohan shouted, his voice trembling as the weight of the destruction became clear. He dropped to his knees as the energy of Universe 10 faded into nothingness. Moments later, Universe 9 followed, its ki dissipating like a candle blown out by an unfeeling wind. No, Gohan's voice cracked as the implications hit him like a tidal wave. Tears streamed down his face as he thought of everyone: his mother, Videl, Pan, Goten, Piccolo, his friends and family. Everything they had fought to protect was on the brink of annihilation. Mom, Videl, Pan, everyone Everything is going to be destroyed. The Grand Priest's calm, cold laughter cut through Gohan's anguish like a blade. It started as a chuckle, then grew into an unhinged cackle, echoing through the void with a maddening intensity. His face twisted with pride as he addressed the broken Saiyan.
"Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking, Saiyan," the Grand Priest declared, his voice filled with cruel satisfaction. "All of this is your fault. You fools killed the gods of destruction, every last one of them. Tell me, who do you think was keeping the multiverse in balance after your little stunt?"
The Grand Priest took a step forward, his aura darkening as his laughter subsided into a sinister grin. "It was me. I was the one maintaining equilibrium, the one holding everything together. And now that you've disrupted my Ka, I see no reason to keep the balance intact. In fact, why not let it all collapse? Why not start over and create a world far superior to this broken one?" "No, you wouldn't," Gohan whispered, horror creeping into his voice.
"Oh, but I would," the Grand Priest sneered. "This failed world deserves to be erased. Then I will craft a new one, a flawless world, free of the mistakes that led to this mess."
The Grand Priest's laughter returned, louder and more deranged than before, reverberating through the dying void. Gohan clenched his fists, forced to listen as he felt the life forces of countless beings vanish one by one. Yet, through the overwhelming despair, something caught his attention, a peculiar anomaly in the pattern of destruction. The universes were being destroyed sequentially, beginning with Universe 12 and moving downward. But something strange had occurred. As Gohan scanned the multiverse with his senses, he realized that Universe 7, his home, remained untouched. Universes 12 through 8 had been obliterated, yet the destruction had skipped Universe 7 entirely. Instead, it continued with Universes 6 through 2, and then, finally, to Universe 1. The Grand Priest's smug demeanor evaporated in an instant, replaced by a look of disbelief. His laughter died in his throat as his sharp eyes scanned the remnants of the collapsing multiverse. Universe 7, against all logic, remained untouched. His expression twisted into shock and frustration as he attempted to comprehend the anomaly. "But how?" he muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief. The confusion on his face deepened as his gaze fell on Goku, lying unconscious on the scorched surface of Venus. The Grand Priest's piercing eyes narrowed, and suddenly, realization flickered across his face, followed by a surge of rage. He recalled the ancient laws governing the cosmos, those immutable rules etched into the very foundation of existence. One in particular stood out, the laws of the Omni, which declared that any being who achieved the status of an Omni had dominion over the universe of their origin, irrespective of their current state. "That's not possible!" the Grand Priest shouted, his voice filled with both anger and disbelief. "Lord Zeno, strip the aquafoam from your body. Every last trace of it. You're no longer an Omni. How can you still hold dominion over Universe 7? His fury erupted as he descended to Venus in a blinding flash, slamming into the planet with such force that its axis shifted violently. The entire landscape trembled, oceans of molten rock spilling like waves before the planet's rotation stabilized once more. He stood there, seething, as his frustration boiled over. Above him, Gohan hovered in silence, his sharp mind racing. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but his instincts told him it had everything to do with Goku. Despite his father's unconscious state, Gohan could sense a strange new energy beginning to manifest within him. It was unlike anything he had encountered before. Not ki, but something equally profound. "This energy," Gohan muttered to himself, his eyes wide with astonishment as he studied the faint glow radiating from Goku's body. "It feels fundamental, like a primal force of existence, just like Kai. But how is that possible? I thought Kai was the only life energy there was. Every living being possesses ki. But this is different." The realization sent a shiver down his spine. Is this what allows Father, and even Vegeta, to tap into the power of the Omni? He wondered aloud, his voice tinged with both awe and confusion. Gohan's gaze lingered on his father's prone form. His mind was awash with questions, but none more pressing than one. "Father," he said softly, his voice almost breaking, "in death, what have you become?" The Grand Priest, meanwhile, was no longer interested in theatric. His piercing gaze snapped back to Goku's motionless body, his fury sharpening into deadly intent. He began to stride forward, each step a declaration of his final resolve. His patience had run out. He would end this mortal now. Gohan's sharp eyes caught the subtle movement of the Grand Priest's fingers. The deity's hand moved with deliberate precision, as if weaving invisible threads in the air. It was an ominous sight, one that made Gohan's heart pound. Then, just as suddenly, the Grand Priest stopped mid-step. His entire body froze in place, unable to move forward. His head jerked up with great effort, and his eyes locked onto Gohan, who hovered above him with an unyielding glare. To the untrained eye, it seemed as though the Grand Priest had stopped of his own accord, but beneath the surface, Gohan's ki manipulation had taken hold. Every one of the Grand Priest's 52 ki points, the vital conduits of energy within his body, remained blocked. But Gohan wasn't content with simply sealing them. He had threaded them together using an intricate web of ki, connecting them all back to himself.
The strain was immense, beads of sweat forming on Gohan's brow as he focused on maintaining the technique. It was like holding the strings of a puppet, except his opponent was no ordinary puppet. This was the Grand Priest. The technique, which Gohan now realized could be described as ki bending, allowed him to manipulate the very flow of energy within another being's body. "You can't move, can you?" Gohan said, his voice steady despite the tension in his muscles. "As long as I hold this connection, you won't take another step." The Grand Priest's eyes narrowed. He strained against the invisible bonds, his overwhelming power surging in an attempt to break free. The effort caused the air around him to warp and tremble, but the Kai threads held firm.
With a swift motion of his hand, Gohan's ki threads tightened like steel cables. A sickening crunch echoed through the air as the Grand Priest's legs buckled, the bones shattered by the overwhelming force. The deity dropped to his knees, his expression momentarily flickering with pain, though his composure quickly returned. "Stay away from my father!" Gohan roared, his aura blazing as his fingers moved with purpose, weaving a complex sequence of commands through the thread. His teeth clenched as he poured his will into one final move, a fatal strike meant to end the Grand Priest for good. "Now, die!" Gohan shouted, his voice reverberating with a mix of fury and desperation. With a flick of his fingers, he sent the command to snap the Grand Priest's neck, but something unexpected happened. The ki threads, his intricate web of control, were severed all at once. The strands snapped in midair, disintegrating into nothingness. Gohan's eyes widened, his heart pounding in disbelief. "But how?" Gohan stammered, his voice laced with shock. "This shouldn't be possible. To remove my threads, you'd have to break down into raw matter and reform yourself. That's the only way. Unless..." His voice trailed off as a realization struck him like a thunderbolt. His fists trembled as he shouted, You've mastered the 101 levels of Kaioken, haven't you? You know how to manipulate ki on that scale?" The Grand Priest's expression remained calm, but a faint smirk tugged at his lips. "No, I haven't," he said simply, his voice steady. "My body is not compatible with the Kaioken. While I do possess ki, my physiology lacks the necessary attributes to sustain such a technique. I gave up on that path long ago." Gohan's brow furrowed in confusion, but the Grand Priest continued, his tone patient, as though explaining a lesson to a student. "However, just because I cannot use Kaioken doesn't mean I didn't study it," the Grand Priest said. "And what I learned was far more valuable than mastering the technique itself. You see, Kaioken and ki in general is riddled with flaws. Its over-reliance on the life energy of the body leaves it vulnerable. Knowing this, I sought alternatives." He took a deliberate breath, as though savoring the moment of revelation. "One way to counter your technique is regeneration. A being with the right regenerative abilities can break free from your ki manipulation. They don't need to break down into matter. They can simply regenerate from a single cell. That cell, called the muscle cell, possesses its own life energy and operates independently of ki. By focusing on that single point, one can rebuild themselves even under complete ki suppression." Gohan's expression hardened as he tried to process the Grand Priest's explanation. "You regenerated?" he asked, his voice tight.
"Indeed," the Grand Priest replied, "and my regenerative abilities extend far beyond what most beings can achieve. But even that wasn't necessary in this case." He gestured to himself with a subtle flourish. "Because I don't rely solely on ki. I have mastery over 2 additional fundamental elements, Mona and Reietsu. When you blocked my ki points, I simply switched my energy source." The deity's voice turned sharper, his eyes narrowing. "Rashi, the energy I'm using now doesn't function like ki. It isn't the natural life element of the body, so it doesn't rely on ki points. Your threads had no effect on it." Gohan's mind raced as he tried to piece together the implications of what he was hearing. Though much of the explanation was beyond his understanding, one thing was painfully clear. His plan to incapacitate the Grand Priest had failed entirely.
"You see now, don't you?" the Grand Priest said, his tone dripping with superiority. "Your little rebellion was doomed from the start. You were never going to defeat me. All you've managed to do is prolong the inevitable." Gohan's fists clenched tightly, his body trembling with rage as the Grand Priest rose to his feet, his shattered legs now fully restored. The deity's aura flared with renewed intensity, a terrifying reminder of the vast gulf in power between them. The Grand Priest turned his gaze to Goku, still lying motionless on the ground. "Now, Saiyan, be a good boy and watch," he said with chilling finality. "Watch as I kill your father." The scene shifted to planet Namek, its serene green-tinted skies and still blue waters, creating a deceptive sense of calm. At the heart of a quiet Namekian village, a group of familiar faces gathered around Elder Guru, a descendant of the Great Elder who had once helped Earth's warriors long ago. Their expressions were somber as they discussed the catastrophic events unfolding across the multiverse. The destruction of Earth weighed heavily on everyone's minds, and the question loomed: should they wish it back now or wait? "This plan makes no sense," Piccolo said firmly, his sharp gaze fixed on the Elder. His arms were crossed, his tone resolute. "If we wish Earth and everyone else back now, we'll just be painting a target on their heads. The multiverse is still in chaos. We need to stay out of sight and let everyone think we're dead, at least until the Saiyans handle the situation." "You're wrong, Piccolo," Krillin countered, stepping forward with urgency in his voice. "We should prioritize bringing everyone back. Laying low might keep us safe for now, but Goku and the others can't fight at their best if they're constantly worrying about us. You know that." The room grew quiet as everyone absorbed Krillin's words. For a moment, even Piccolo seemed to waver. But before he could respond, Elder Guru interjected. "Krillin has a point," Guru said slowly, his voice deep and contemplative. "But Piccolo's caution is not unfounded. Wishing Earth back now could expose us to even greater danger. It is a difficult choice." Finally, after a heated debate, the group reluctantly agreed to follow Piccolo's advice. They would remain hidden on Namek, waiting for the storm to pass. However, fate had other plans. The tranquility of the village shattered in an instant as a dark presence descended from the sky. A massive figure landed just outside the village, his arrival shaking the ground beneath him. The air around him seemed heavy, almost suffocating, as he strode toward the village with deliberate steps. The intruder was Azazel, a demon with an aura so malevolent it made the Namekians tremble with dread. His crimson eyes scanned the village, locking onto the energy he sought. Piccolo's power in particular piqued his interest, a smirk tugging at his lips. Inside the chamber, Elder Guru's face paled as he clutched his staff tightly. "A great evil has come to this world," he said, his voice trembling. "This being, it brings death to us all." The Z-Fighters sprang into action. Krillin, Master Roshi, and androids 17 and 18 quickly readied themselves, while Piccolo stood at the front, his eyes narrowed in determination. The group exited the chamber cautiously, their movements tense as they made their way toward the village entrance. Standing beside them, Bulma and Chi-Chi exchanged worried glances. Bulma's face was pale with fear. "What if it's the gods?" she said, her voice shaking. "What if they've come to punish us because of what Goku and the others have done?" Chi-Chi clutched her son Goten tightly to her chest. "I won't let you fight," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I lost Gohan. I can't lose you too." The tension grew thicker with every step as they neared the edge of the village. The Z-Fighters could feel the malevolence emanating from the figure ahead, yet there was something strange about it. "Why can't I sense his energy?" Piccolo asked, his voice sharp and confused. "Me neither," Krillin said, his tone equally alarmed. Master Roshi stroked his beard thoughtfully. "If we can't sense it, that means one thing," he said grimly. "He's some kind of deity." Piccolo's eyes narrowed. "A deity, huh?" he muttered. "Then why is he here?" At the edge of the village, the group finally laid eyes on their uninvited guest. Azazel stood tall, his hands clasped behind his back like a martial arts master, his expression one of calm superiority. The demon's dark armor glinted in the Namekian sunlight, and his gaze was fixed squarely on Piccolo. "By chance, are you Piccolo?" Azazel asked, his tone smooth and deliberate. Piccolo's eyes never left the intruder as he stepped forward, his guard raised. "Yes," he said cautiously, "I am Piccolo, but I'm afraid I don't know who you are." Azazel's smirk widened slightly. "Good," he said. "That makes this even more entertaining." "I'm Azazel," the demon said, his voice smooth and deceptively calm, his crimson eyes locked onto Piccolo. "And as for why I'm here, well, I've come for you, of course. Would it be too much to ask for you to come with me willingly? No force, no mess." Piccolo's eyes narrowed,
his muscles tensing as his guard remained firmly raised. "You're crazy if you think I'd go anywhere with you. I don't even know who you are," he shouted, his voice carrying the weight of both defiance and suspicion.
Azazel chuckled, a dark and hollow sound that sent a chill through the air. His expression twisted into a sinister grin, one that exuded both malice and amusement. "Because," he said, "if you don't, I'll have to kill every mortal on this planet. Surely that changes your perspective, doesn't it?" And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.